Hi friends, today our famous artist is Hokusai, who's the most famous Japanese woodblock print artist. The materials for today, we are going to be starting with a Sharpie. I have this fine point one, but if you have a normal one, that'll work as well. And then I have 3 different colored pencils, dark green, orange, and a light blue. And then we are also going to do some chalk pastel techniques. So we're not going to use all of these colors, but if you don't have a chalk pastel set, you can even use sidewalk chalk that you would use on your driveway outside. And for the chalk pastel, I like to use cotton balls if you have those on hand. If you don't, you can use Kleenex and just scrap paper. So starting out, we are going to make sure our paper is landscape, which is long versus tall. So put your paper in landscape orientation, and we're going to start with a line drawing. So the first step we're going to do is lay our curved lines. So on the right side, you can hop up a couple inches, make a little planting dot. Same thing on the left side. And then in the middle of the paper, so if you imagine cutting this in half, you're going to hop up about an inch. So I have 3 dots, and that's going to help me do my curved line. Sometimes it's easier too if you rotate your paper just a little bit. That way you can get a better handle on your line. And then we are also going to start layering some trees. So there's these really beautiful long skinny trees. So on the left side, I'm going to just loosely kind of do squiggly lines. So I'm kind of just allowing my hand to move, kind of vibrate, so that I can get these really loose lines. And you want to make sure that it touches past the curved line. So that's one side of the tree, and then I'm going to leave a little bit of space and do the other side. And then we like to add the branches, so you can do a couple squiggly curved lines coming off of the side here, and that'll be a branch. So I'm just going to keep working my way from the left to the right, adding these squiggly lines for various heights and shapes of the trees. And I'll just turn up the music while we're working. So even though we are doing a drawing, these were actually made using a technique called woodblock print. So what the artists would do is they would get a big block of wood, and they would use different tools like sharp tools, knives, and different ways to cut into and carve the wood. And so they would carve these shapes. So we're just using our pen to create these lines, but they would actually use different tools to cut into the wood, and what would be left is an image. And then once they had the image, they would go ahead and add different colors. So they would use, different types of ink and layer the colors, so kind of paint them and roll them on top of the wood. And then they would take that and they would use it to, they would get another piece of paper and they would press down, and what would be left over on the other side would be the print. So it's pretty amazing what what kinds of techniques were created so long ago. And the other cool thing about printmaking is you can get more than one single piece. You can keep repeating that process over and over again with different colors. So another example of printmaking is called screen printing, and your t-shirts, the ones with the different designs on them, were made using the printmaking technique. So instead of wood, they used a screen. So it's pretty cool when you start learning all these different ways that you can create designs and artwork. So while I'm talking, I'm just continuing to add a bunch of trees. You can follow along if you want to go more off of the original, or if you feel like just going off on your own and creating a bunch of trees for this like forest, then you're welcome to do that too. So the Japanese style is also really heavy on detail. So there's a lot of detail that goes into their work. So this is going to be actually more primarily line work and using our Sharpie, our ink, to create different types of lines in mark making. But when we add the color, the chalk pastel is going to be super quick. It's not as time consuming as doing colored pencil or marker, so it's a really quick application of color. So I'm just going to do a couple more really skinny trees. Now for this tree on the right, before I do that, I'm actually going to draw a really long skinny rectangle. So you're going to do a short horizontal line at the top. You're going to do two long straight lines. Now this is actually where they would put the signature. So Japanese is written from, top to bottom instead of ours left to right. So, I mean, if you know Japanese, you're welcome to put your Japanese characters. I'm just gonna put my initials, so M, and you can do your full name, you can do your initials, it's up to you. That also adds another kind of cultural reference for us. And then behind this, these were actually made using, they would create stamps, and each person would have a specific stamp. But what we're going to do is we're just going to do this really big tree kind of peeking behind it and going off the side of the paper. Okay, so before we go on to the treetops, we're going to do some pointillism. So you're just going to use the very point of your pen, and you can do little tiny dots and just kind of sprinkle them all over your trees just to add another layer of texture. Because there's so much detail in Japanese artwork, it almost allows you to zone out and just really get into this meditative state where you're not really thinking so much about what you're doing, but you're just super present with your work, which is kind of a fun exercise. So definitely encourage you guys to just, you know, not think too much about where you're placing these. Don't try so hard to put them in the exact place as mine. I just want you to allow your hand to just guide it along your paper and sprinkle these little points on your trees. So we'll do a few more minutes of this, and then we will go on to some marks for the tree tops. Okay, so we have created this forest of trees, and now we want to do the treetops. So before we add any color, we're just going to do a few marks to show some of those treetops. So they almost look like little bursts. So you're going to do short little straight lines that are going in the shape of a circle. They almost look like little sun rays. And so these are just going to be little poofs of lines. So we're going to add these all along the treetops. And you know, you can get as detailed as you want with it. You can do a bunch of small ones kind of all lined up, or you can do some bigger ones. But I'll show you the next step just in case you go really quickly. Once you've added all of these different marks, you can use your colored pencil, whatever color you want. I'm using a dark green. And then you can just color in and around those areas. So you can see the difference between something with these designs versus just the green. So, you know, this adds another layer, another dimension and more detail to it. So it'll take a few minutes to do the treetops. Right, so, you know, obviously you could just keep adding more and more. So I'm going to move on to the next step, which is going to be adding the colors. So you have your green. I have this dark green. You can use various colors, but also you can get different colors just by the way that you press down. So if I'm pressing really lightly, barely touching my paper, I can get this really light green, versus if I'm using a lot of pressure, I get a darker green. So you can play around with pressure. This is light, medium, dark, and add color into your trees. Obviously I'm going more off of traditional, but if you like the way that, you know, you want to choose colors that you're totally into right now, you can do that too. Like if you want to do, you know, red treetops like for the fall, or you want to do little bursts of pink for cherry blossoms, you can choose the colors that you are really drawn to. That's also highly encouraged. So these are kind of looser. You don't have to really worry about doing them, you know, perfectly around those marks. You can just add these dots of, you know, do your circle and then you color it in to make it a dot. Okay, so if you're not done coloring the treetops, that's no problem. I'm just going to show you guys the next step in the case that you are finished with that. So you can always go back to something if you didn't finish it same time as me. So before we introduce any more black lines, I want to make sure that we fill in the tree trunks and branches. So I chose this color here. If you have Prismacolors, it's called Mineral Orange. It's like a bright orange color, and it's the closest one I could find to the original image. So I'm just going to use this to fill in the tree trunks. So we are working in layers here. So much like the woodblock print artists would be layering color, each color would be for a different element. That's how we're working too. So we've laid out the, you know, line work and the marks, textural marks, and now we are adding color. it's amazing to see what a little bit of color can do. You know, looking at the left side of my drawing versus the right, we get such a different feeling. And if you guys ever want to, you know, leave some areas open, sometimes, you know, as an artist, you will tend to like things, and you know, other people like different things. And if you like the look of just like the stark white against the green treetops, if that makes you think of a certain memory or brings a certain feeling that you want to show in your work, then you're always welcome to just follow your intuition and do what feels right to you. The other thing about color in Japanese artwork is it is, how do I say, there's not that much value in the woodblock prints because they can only get a certain amount of color on there. It's not like each tree is being drawn super realistically. So it's more flat, it's very stylized, defined, and so those certain things influence the overall look of a piece. So you can really tell, you know, the Japanese woodblock print from a European oil painting. There's just like a difference in the technique and the way the artist used their tools, their art tools. Okay, so I'm coming up to the last one. Now we have a few more steps. We are going to go back to our black Sharpie once we finish with this big tree, and we're going to draw the horizon line. So the horizon line, for those of you that aren't familiar, is where the land meets the sky, or the land meets the ocean, or the ocean meets the sky. So I'm gonna go in and do a horizontal straight line. So I'm just gonna make a mark. So just go to the very left side of your paper here, and you're gonna hop up a little bit and make a little mark. Then you're gonna do the same thing on the right side. So you're gonna go to the very right side here. You're gonna hop up, and then just like to the left of that tree, make a mark. So if you have a scrap paper, if you even have a ruler, I'm just gonna use my scrap paper that I got out. You can use that as a straight edge, the side of the paper. So you can line up one side of the paper with one dot and the other side with another dot. This makes it a little bit easier. You can freehand it, but this is just a quick little tool. So we don't want to do a line all the way across because that's going to cut off the treetops. So you're going to do your line. Now follow along the paper. Once you touch a colored area, you're going to hop over it. So here, lift your pen, hop over it, go to the next area. Just keep going all the way. It's like hopscotch. Okay, now it's going to bring you all the way to the end, and when you remove your paper, you'll have a beautiful, clean, crisp horizon line. So just above the horizon line, we're going to do some marks. So on the left side here, you're going to do little tiny straight lines. Now again, you're going to hop over the trees because we don't want to cut into the trees. These are like bushes. So I'm just doing these different little marks to create different types of land. And this is going to pretty much go, yeah, it's going to pretty much go all the way across. Now just make sure you're going above the horizon line. So we have this horizon line here, and this is going to be one area, then this area right above it. So a few different types of marks here. Above that, we're going to do some curved lines for some rolling hills. So this is going to start kind of between the second and third tree. You're going to do some curved lines curving up and down. And again, you guys have been practicing the skipping between the trees, so hopping over so you don't put your pen down in those areas. Okay, so we get a sense of depth. These trees are really close to us, and then further away past the horizon line we see mountains, bushes, little hills. And then lastly, in the very middle, framed between these two branches, is Mount Fuji. So you're going to start out, I want you to find the area where Mount Fuji will fit in between these two trees in the middle. So you're going to do a curved line curving down towards the left. At the very top, it's going to be little angle lines, two little angle lines. And then it's going to curve from here, curving down, hop over the tree, and continue until it touches the top there. So that is Mount Fuji in the distance. To show the snow-capped mountain, you're going to start on the left and do these curved lines curving up and down. Okay, and so everything above that curved line, it's going to stay the white of the paper. Below it, we're going to color it in. It's kind of a dark blue, so sorry, I should have told you to get that dark blue for Mount Fuji. So just go ahead and grab a either black or dark blue colored pencil. I'm going to use indigo. And you're just going to use really hard pressure so that you really get that dark color for the bottom of the mountain. Okay, so after you're done with that dark blue, that's all you need for that one. I am gonna add some of this green, this darker green, in this area here where the bushes are. And you don't have to color it in fully, you can just, do these tall angle lines back and forth, and it also adds another kind of texture to the piece. Just try to keep it clean underneath the horizon line. So that's the bigger area we're going to use some chalk. Okay, so the last step we want to do is the chalk pastel. So, if you have your scrap paper, I'm just gonna move this a little bit so I can fit our scrap paper in. All right. So the colors I'm gonna use for chalk pastel based off the original are this lime green color. Okay, let's see, a light blue, dark blue, so indigo, And that should be it. Yep. So, some of you may have used chalk pastel before. It does get kind of messy. It'll get on your fingers. It's no problem. It'll wash right off. So the reason why I have my scrap paper is because I want to use it to add the color onto first. So I'm going to just use the flat side, rub it back and forth. You'll see there's, you know, little dust. That's good. We want that. So then you can use your fingers, but if you have cotton ball, that's nice to use too. Pick up the pigment, that's the color. Okay, it's going to change your cotton ball. And then wherever you want to add this color, you're going to use it in your drawing. So you're just going to, see, I'm going to have it on the bottom here. I'm going to use my cotton ball kind of like a brush to add this really soft color of green. So where you have more green, it's going to be brighter, and then when I'm kind of running out, it's going to be lighter. All you need to do if you run out is just go back to your scrap paper, rub your chalk pastel on it, grab some more of the chalk, and then add it onto your drawing. So it gives an almost airbrush effect, which is pretty cool. Okay. I'm also going to add a little bit of this green in those hills. Okay. So you can use two colors on one cotton ball, but I would say, you know, once you're done with one side, just flip it over and then you can use it for the other side so we're not wasteful. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some blue. So rub the light blue on your scrap paper, grab your cotton ball. Okay. Now this is going to be used for the bottom of the sky. So I'm just going to add this right along the bottom, right above the horizon. And you can go right on top of your trees, that's fine. So what we're doing is we're creating a gradient, which means it's going from lighter to darker. Some of you also may know that as, it's called ombre. So I have my light blue, I have this medium blue. Now you can use the same cotton ball if you're using the blues because they're in the same color family, but I wouldn't use different colors. Like I wouldn't use red and green on one cotton ball because that's going to change the color. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to do some blue along the middle here, and it's beautiful. Really look at how nice and atmospheric it really looks, like the sky. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to use this deep blue. Okay, and that's going to go right along the top. So again, if you guys want to play around with different colors, if you want to do like the sunrise, sunset, different time of day, like that's what's going to influence the colors of the sky, totally feel free to do that. But again, this is based off the original, so just trying to get it as close as I can. Okay. Now, when you're done with your chalk, oh, I am going to add some in here for the middle section. So again, see how quick I can add color? It's really awesome. Okay, so when you're done with your chalk, one thing is you do not want to blow it because it might get in your eyes or up your nose. That's not good. So you're just going to hold it on the sides. You're going to lift it and you're just going to tap it lightly on your table, and then all of the excess chalk is gonna just go to the bottom, and then you'll be able to, you know, have less of that chalky, dusty texture on there. And that's it for our drawing. This is a really beautiful way that you can use different lines, mark making, and 2 different types of application of color to create a really beautiful landscape. So excited to see how yours turned out.